All right. So welcome. We're here today with Wei Zhang from Diaper, who's a TCIA member company, who's going to chat with us, me, Amy Tatro from TCIA. He's going to chat with us a little bit about soil moisture and why it's so critical for newly planted trees and shrubs. But before we get started, before we get into all the details, Wei, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Amy, for the opportunity. I'm a chemical engineer by training, actually. I know the pesticides or the herbicide better than the trees itself. Uh, but a few years ago, when I was still preparing myself for academic career, so I got my PhD in chemical engineering and trying to be a professor somewhere. The only problem is nobody want to hire me.
That's a challenge.
Well, about 10 years ago, my wife, she's a chemist, by the way, she got the idea about how to recycle baby diapers. She was changing diaper for first child, and then she know how important the materials inside, the outside, and then she hate to bring that 10 pounds every day to put in the dumpster. So she wrote a proposal to National Science Foundation to propose a new way to recycle baby diapers. She got funded, and then she looked at me saying that somebody have to do the dirty jobs. So
And this is where you come in.
this is where I'm coming. I don't have a good excuse to get out of it, so I have to do it. And then quickly we found that it's going nowhere. Nobody will buy the recycled materials. Nobody. And then we realized that we have to find a new way to use the materials. Because if we don't use it, it goes right back to the landfill. And then we created different application on how to use it. At that time, we still don't know about trees, don't know about plants, not much. And then
Yeah. So you're just
we,
taking the actual diapers and those materials and bringing them and breaking them down, and then you're still searching for a source of what to do with that material, right?
that's right.
Okay.
So we did a trial on a root media in Richmond, and then it worked. And to be honest, we didn't understand how it worked. We just know it worked. It helped the trees without watering, it survived. And then as a comparison, the other block, the trees all died. We didn't satisfy with that. We don't know how it worked. We just know it worked. So we get into the uh, education side. We learned a lot about the trees from you guys. Yeah, you are my teachers on the horticulture, arboriculture, things like that. I listen to so many different arbors professors in this area to learn about these things, and then I trained myself to learn to know more about that, about trees, about the benefits, and that's how we get into this.
That's such an interesting story. I really appreciate you sort of saying that. And when did all this sort of start again? Refresh my memory.
And so 2015 is when we finished up the first trial and the National Science Foundation grant. And then we couldn't get a follow-up grant because the recycling side, nobody believed it. And then we started to do the field trials. And then 2016 is the year I started going to the trade shows. And then I realized there's so much questions, so many questions I couldn't answer. So I started listening to the talks, listening to the lectures, sitting in the lectures, I started learning things, and that's when it started. So.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's get into it a little bit deeper, right? I think that, many of our tree care industry colleagues, as you know, understand the value of urban trees, right? Because that's where a lot of your focus is. But I also know that our members really love information and data, and you, coming from the world of academia, are clearly very well versed in information and data. So can you provide a few specific examples on like how trees can help issues like urban islands, pollution, air quality, flooding, and all of those other environmental products today? So I guess what I'm asking is, why are urban trees so important? And can you provide some of those cool data points that you have around that?
Okay. Well, sure. The best example is that actually is a question back to you. When you want to relax, do you like a park or parking lot?
For sure a park. For
Well,
sure.
even you choose a parking lot, just so you know, the shaded parking spaces are the favorite ones in the summertime. And then every time you go to a shopping area, the parking space with the shade is the one that first got occupied.
Yeah.
So,
Makes sense.
so yeah, people like that. I mean, plants in general, all the green plants, it absorbs the sunlight, carbon dioxide, and the water to do the photosynthesis. Well, when it absorbs the sunlight, it definitely reduces the heat that getting into the air. That reduces the heat island effect. And then it also needs nutrients to do that. Guess what? So many pollutants happen to be nutrients for the plants. Like carbon dioxide, we give away the carbon dioxide, and then plants use them for the photosynthesis. So it is so natural for trees to remove the pollutants and then improve the air quality. And then when it do that, it also cools down the city and also reduces the flooding because it uses the water. The reason we have the heat island effect really is because we cut all the trees off, we remove all this tree canopy, and that's where the heat island come in. Now, yeah, of course, the larger woody plant, like the one we call trees, have more horsepower than the smaller plants to do this job. Uh, but then again, in the city area, you have a lot of challenge. It's not ideal for the tree to grow. Uh,
Yeah. So can you talk about some of those challenges with urban trees? I mean, you were starting to mention a few of those key issues, but do you want to get into that a little bit more?
Watering is the biggest issue. Watering, soil walling, some of these bad practices you see a lot in this urban area are the main challenges. For example, underwater and overwater are the top issues. I heard people from southern California saying that so many people kill their plants by overwatering. I said, what?
Guilty as charged.
Yeah. And how that happened? It turns out that is people that don't understand. They think it's in desert, it's so hot, must be providing a lot of water for them. And then they didn't know that when there's too much water, it's generating the same symptom like the underwater, yellow and falling leaves. And when that happens, people, oh, you need more water, keep adding more water to it. And
So
that's getting loss issue into that, yeah.
gotcha. So it's like compensating. People are just sort of constantly trying to do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Gotcha. So how does stormwater play into this?
Stormwater is a resource, right? We know it is a resource. But if you ask a city, a public works director, or a public utility people, or even the transportation side, they probably going to tell you it's a problem they need to manage. It is a resource. We know without water we cannot grow anything. But at the same time, for these people, it is a problem. When there's too much stormwater, they need to get rid of it as quick as possible to prevent the flooding, prevent the other issues. And then when you have to manage that to get rid of them, that does getting into the impression that they need to get rid of it quick as possible. But if you retain some of the stormwater, that's definitely going to help a lot in terms of for the tree establishment. But then again, you don't want to get into the overwatering side. You want to stay on the I would say I typically call it is the plant available water side. It's like an envelope, and then the top of the bar is the field capacity. The lower bar is the wilting point. Above the field capacity, the water is we call it standing water. The standing water is not going. That's the overwatering issue. Below the wilting point, even the soil still have lost this water. The plants cannot use them. So only in that envelope, that's the plant available water. Unfortunately, the compact soils in the urban area really doesn't help that kind of squeeze that envelope.
So it's a little, oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So it's a little bit soil moisture, right? Like soil
Yep.
moisture
Yes.
management is sort of what I'm hearing you say. Is that accurate?
Yeah, soil moisture management is the hardest thing for many of the new tree planting projects. For some existing trees, it probably have less of that issue only because the trees kind of establish it. They can tolerate they can tolerate the mismanagement a little bit more.
They can tolerate what I'm trying to do when it doesn't go great.
Yeah, that's right. So
Okay.
you're absolutely right on that. Yeah.
So can you speak a little bit more to that? Because I understand the basics, but I'd like to hear a little bit more from you as far as the envelope and sort of the soil moisture.
Yeah, so the field capacity, each soil, it depending on the soil structure, that different soil structure have different amount of plant available water. Above it, like we said, is a standing water issue. Below it is the wilting point. Below the wilting point means the plant's going to suffer permanently. In between, that's the plant available water. It is very common in the urban area, like I said. It's a compact soil. It reduces the amount of soil. Of course, compact soil also reduces the air traveling to the roots. So that's why the plants cannot grow roots into a very compact soil. And guess what? Some of these root side planting sites, they are compacted so hard, they are harder than the bricks.
Wow. That's
So
intense.
let's see the density. The brick is like a 2 or 1.8. Let's see, it's a gram per cubic centimeter. So sorry about the units, but just to give you an idea. I think the brick is just like a 2.
Okay.
Concrete is a little bit above 2. So when the engineers pave the road, they have to compact to a certain degree to prevent from clapping that. And unfortunately, the tree planting typically is after that.
Okay. So
It's
yeah,
a
talk a little
guarantee.
bit about that. You got us up to this point. Now talk about the tree planting, because this is where it
Yep.
starts to get dicey, right?
So yeah, that's right. So tree planting, you need to provide them the water to it. Not just 1 year, all right? The typical saying this is a 1 year warranty. Does the 1 year warranty have anything to do with the tree establishment? It probably have nothing to do with it. It have more to do with the contracting, has how the contract is written, and then some of this contractor you cannot drag on 5 years to get paid. You don't have that financial capability. So you want to close the project at 1 year, and then that only say that your planting have no problem. The planting labor or the practice have no problem. The tree have no problem. But after that, the client need to take over, continue the watering.
Right.
The current knowledge is that it should be 1 year per inch of caliper. So if you're planting a 3-inch tree, you should planning on 3 years of maintenance. But the 1 year warranty, it doesn't indicate that it's 1 year it's survive, it's established, but it's not. And then very unfortunately, the governments allow that happen, and then people misunderstand that. And then so there's a lot of issue that's leading to this the tree planting problem. Yeah.
So what I think I hear you saying too is that we, as tree care companies and folks handling that, is that what we really need to educate our clients more, our customers more, right, about what these trees need and how to take care of them in the long term. Is that accurate?
It's everybody's responsibility.
Everybody has to do their job.
The government need to get them educated, get them self-educated. The contractor have the responsibility to educate their client. Uh, this tree care industry members, they have to pay the membership fee, do the education, all that. Guess what? That is not going to help them to win the low bid. The low bid policy by the government is not encouraging the best practice, unfortunately. Somebody without any certification, they don't need to pay the membership fee, don't need to pay the education, they just have a pickup and a shovel. They go into bid with a low bid, and they may beat you in terms of getting the contract. But how we can, in the long run, it costs more for the city, for the class, and then we need to educate the people what's the best. Fortunately, there's some technology that we can see that it help reduce the cost of these TCIA members do the contracting. It help them to win the bid, and I also help them to educate, give them the tool to educate their clients that 1 year warranty is not meaning it getting established. You need more than that. And then more importantly, the tree canopy, you cannot build this in a year. Replacing a big tree with a small tree is not the same. It doesn't generate the same benefits. And then you cannot say that, oh, dead tree, replace it, and then we're good to go. Take a 10 years, 20 years for the tree to actually start pumping back all the benefits we talk about. I mean, a better air quality, stormwater control, those benefits. If you don't have that long term, you cannot generate the benefits. So many developers, they clear cut the whole thing and then plant a few trees there, saying that we take care of that. The big issue that many of these government agencies don't follow up with that, say that you didn't actually replace the canopy you removed.
Gotcha. Yeah, so what I'm hearing you say that it's really important for our TCIA member companies who are, pretty well versed, very professional, to continue to educate themselves on the importance of these trees, and then take that education like we're talking about today and transfer that to their clients so that they understand the value of hiring a member company as opposed to some, random guy with a truck and a chainsaw and a 1 year warranty tree, because the investment in the long term is going to be so much greater than that short-term resolution.
Yes, USDA have a report talking about every dollar they spend on the tree planting, caring about trees, watering the trees, generates 2 to 5 times the return on their money.
Wow.
And then actually, I and Gordon Mann, my friend, have developed a new talk called pitching green infrastructure to the political leaders. It's not just the tax, it's not just the benefits, but also tax dollars. It save lots of tax dollars.
Yeah, really good point. Thank you for sharing that. So I want to back up a little bit because I heard you say something and I wanted to get into it a little bit more. Is that you mentioned that there are successful methods of technology that can kind of help solve this soil moisture problem. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Well, I don't want to make this a sales pitch talk, but what I have been using the term is called the solid water with air pockets. So when I'm learning how tree diaper works, I realize that it is that's what I developed this term called solid water with air pockets. It is a solid, so it will not flow away. So when you have too much water on the surface of the soil, you won't drain them away. So to avoid the overwatering issue, this solid water will absorb up this water that will be wasted as runoff. And then because it's also because it's solid and it with air pockets, it allows the air to go down to the root, travel down to the roots, so it will not overwhelmingly kind of drawn these rules. And then because there's a combination of these, and it actually significantly increased the plant available water. For example, one of these can be 4 inches more of the plant available water on the ground. And the best part, it absorbs the rain. When the rain comes, it catches the rain, and then it slow releases only when the soil dries. You know, all the water methods like water bags, irrigation system, they will not take the water back up. The only way to resolve the overwatering issue is to drain them away. The irrigation system actually have this backflow preventer in the land to prevent the contamination of the potable water system. And then, so this solid water will absorb up the excess water, kind of make it used for the later on.
Interesting. So I got to ask, is this, so I want to pull it all full circle, right? Is this where the diapers we were talking about at the beginning kind of come into play here?
Yeah, that's right. That's it. But I don't want to make a sales pitch, and this is so.
This is me being just genuinely curious, so I apologize to our viewers at home. I wanted to know where the diapers were going to come back into this. So you also mentioned previously about how compacted urban soils are like really hard for trees to get established, right? That's been a big, huge theme on this. Do you have any other suggestions on how we can sort of resolve that issue?
This come back to you about the tree planting. Many of these construction projects are before the tree planting projects. Mm-hmm. And these construction companies compact soil intentionally or unintentionally. When they have this heavy equipment on the side, it's inevitable to have this compact soil. And also because it's the last step, every single project I heard is over budget.
I think that's the way of the world right now, right?
Yeah, that's right. So when it comes down to the landscaping, they will reduce the cost to make sure it's at the budget. So they will call for cheap landscaping. And that's not going to help. And typically a soil amendment will solve the issue. But if you put a soil amendment in your project, you're probably not even going to get it. Yeah. And very unfortunate. But if you don't include it, it's for the long run, it's not good. I have a site that is on the root side that the tree has been planted 3 years. The soil is so compacted, and the roots growing outside the original root ball is only the tip of the pencil.
Okay.
Size. And I know that firsthand. But I'm running a test that using earthworms to loosen up the compact soil. Mm-hmm. So earthworms are found that I read it is by someone from Bartlett, Professor Percival. He's based in the UK. He has some publication about they use the earthworms to loosen up the compacted soils. All you need is to provide a food, organic matter, and moisture. They need to be able to drill down. And that I'm conducting a study right now to attract the earthworm to the compact soils, but it's not done yet. To be exact, my test was ruined by the moles, gopher, or whatever. So when I tried to dig up, do a word count, I couldn't find much, only a mole.
Only a mole. Moles are also ruining my garden, so I'm a little frustrated with them as well. I feel you.
A friend said, a mole can also loosen up your soil. I said, from the compact soil standpoint, actually it's not a bad thing.
A little different than earthworms, though. I feel as though that would be a little bit of a different vibe.
Yeah.
So, Wei, we're coming up on the end of our half hour together. And we kind of jumped around a lot, right? Like I peppered you with a lot of different questions, so I appreciate your patience with me. Is there anything that we didn't sort of talk about with your work that you would like to speak to a little bit more?
Well, I would say that's the stormwater side. We have I would say the grain stormwater infrastructure have been coming. It's pretty popular in the West Coast. It coming to the East Coast and getting popular, more popular. But that's one issue with that. That's again, it's a soil moisture management issue, because in order for this system to work, they have to let the rainwater to flow to the system. What they mean is going to be flooded
Mm-hmm.
during the storm. And then, of course, to prevent the overwatering issue, they use a very sandy soil so it drains out quickly. The other issue, of course, is the salt on we put on the sidewalk, on the
Mm.
roof. It happened to be this green stormwater systems take the first flush of the dirty water. The first flush also have the most salt in there. So this planting area, this green stormwater infrastructure, typically struggles year after year. Soil moisture, I mean the sandy soil, it either is flooded or it's like a desert. So it's going to have a roller coaster change in the terms of the soil moisture. And then on top of that, the heat island is typically on the root side. It's where the most hot surface is, and the salt. So there's a lot of the challenge to this grindstone water infrastructure. But then again, if we consider the stone water as a resource, we can make use of it to solve all these
All these
issues.
problems.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Oh, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that.
Uh,
Anything else about stormwater that you want to illuminate for us?
well, I would say it's mainly about there's a lot of other issues, and we probably cannot don't have the time to get into. And the other issues about this typically just general landscaping tree planting is that people keep doing this mulch volcano thing. Make a mulch rain is much easier, cost less mulch, but then again, people are charged by the amount of mulch they put on probably, and then that creates loss issues. And planting too deep is the other issue. I need to have the root flare above the ground, not in the soil. That I think I read somewhere saying that 90% of tree planted too deep,
Mm-hmm.
and that causing loss issues for the long-term health issue of the trees, and so
Gotcha. So yeah, I mean, I think personally, my biggest takeaway for our viewers and for our members, especially, is just that continuous education, right? Like to kind of constantly be out there attending conferences, checking out live streams, reading articles about proper planting, about stormwater runoff, and about how to like really take all of that information and get that back out to their customers so that their
yes.
customers can make the most educated decision, which is going to help our members get their bids, and then it's going to help the trees in the long run, right?
Yeah, in the long run, the long-term benefits is what this TCIA member should focus on. It's not the short term. The short term, you cannot beat that somebody just with a pickup and a shovel. You need to compete on the long-term benefits. And trees, a 1 year old tree is not going to generate any benefits. It probably costs more than the benefits. And then it is a 10-year-old tree. How you make sure this tree 10 years later, 20 years later, still standing there, providing the shade, reducing the stormwater runoff, all those things. And then that's the thing you need to bring to the client, and then to
Yeah.
make sure they understand.
I really appreciate that way. It's a bit of a slow burn, right? But it's what's best for everybody and for the trees.
Yes.
So thank you.
Uh,
So we're gonna round this out. Again, our half hour together. I really want to thank you, Wei, for taking the time to discuss soil moisture, how critical it is for urban trees, and I'll do it. You don't have to, but correct me if I'm wrong. But I also think that your company, Tree Diaper, is offering a discount code for TCIA member companies on your products.
Yes,
So,
I do.
yeah, anybody that's, checking this out or checking this out a little bit later can navigate to treediaper.com and they can use the code TCIA pod and it'll give you 15% off their products before June 30th. Again, TCIA pod at treediaper.com. So I would encourage you guys to just go check it out, poke around a little bit, and see what you can get.
Right.
And Wei, thank you again for taking the time to chat with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
All right. Bye-bye.